Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of our podcast. Today, we have with us Maniti Modi Shah. She's the co founder of ConnectFor. So, for people who are not aware, ConnectFor is a non profit organization working in the development sector. It works towards creating NGOs and volunteering synergy. ConnectFor is an organization that is a brainchild of Shloka Mehta Ambani and Maniti Modi Shah. And I think the seed germinated in their mind some 7-8 years back, and they've been doing a wonderful job at spreading the mission of volunteering through India. So we'll hear from Maniti in itself as she's available, joining us today about ConnectFor. So thank you, Manati, first of all, for joining in. And I'll begin by asking, like, how did you and Shloka come up with this, and what was your initial vision towards starting ConnectFor?
Sure. Thanks, Palak, for having me on your podcast. It's a um, great initiative by you, and happy to share our journey and our story with your audience. So, a couple of years ago, about 7 years back, we had both Shloka and I were friends in high school, and we had just moved back to India after completing our further education. She studied in the US and I had studied in the UK, and we'd just come back. At that time, I was working in consulting. So I was doing a management consulting job, and over the weekends, I was looking to volunteer and do something in my spare time. But I was really lost in terms of the process of how to volunteer, how do I connect with an NGO. And Shloka was working in the social development sector at that point in time. So I just reached out to her. And that's how we started, we got talking about volunteering. And she mentioned that there were a lot of people who had reached out to her. And it seemed like there was a need for somebody to connect volunteers to NGOs more easily because it was quite difficult. You needed to know somebody in an NGO, Google a bunch of NGO numbers. Now, there are 3.3 million nonprofits in India, or even more. And we probably note 8 or 10 on the top of our minds, right? And most of them will be in the space of, say, teaching or education or working with children. If you're looking to do something else, it's even more difficult to connect with a nonprofit because a lot of NGOs don't have the visibility to market themselves, to be well known, to be heard of. They don't have good staff and support system to manage volunteers. So it's very difficult to connect with a nonprofit. And I think because we personally faced this challenge, that's where we got the idea of just making connecting to an NGO more easy. So that's where the seeds of ConnectFor was sown essentially. I think it was more from a personal experience perspective only. And at that point in time, we thought of why don't we start a platform like this, which will make volunteering more easy, fun, and structured because it was quite unstructured. And nonprofits obviously had the need for volunteers, and there were lots and lots of students, young professionals who want to get into the field of volunteering. So we just thought that we'll play the role of matchmakers. And I think from that idea, we just tested it out. And in first few months, we had just barely made like a Google form kind of a thing to connect volunteers and NGOs. And I think it picked up so well that then we got full-fledged into building out a website and a tool and onboarding more non-profits and outreaching to more volunteers. So that's how the whole journey began.
That's great. That's great. And like in the social sector, I think there's a greater purpose to doing things because people are here not for money, not for anything else, but more so to, just spread a culture which is going to serve a larger purpose in the long run. So to take that forward, like how did you and Shloka and the whole team in the beginning, people who were involved with you since the very inception of it, work towards generating a purpose and not care too much about the other available fields that people usually take up in today's times. So how did that purpose form or find its path in the journey?
So I think it's volunteering is usually something that's pretty close to people's heart for the ones who want to do it. Like if we've seen people from quite a young age to, you know, quite older people also. Some people who want to give back, they really have a strong sense of purpose, and I think that doesn't like nothing. It's nothing that we are doing that encourages them. I think it's just an inherent thing that they want to do something good, and we're just the tool they use to reach an NGO where they can make a difference, really. And then there are people whose motivations might be quite different to volunteer. Like a lot of students want to do it to build their resumes. A lot of people who want to go for their masters and stuff like that are doing it so that they can improve the quality of their college applications. There are people now, there are a lot of companies which are encouraging employees to volunteer as a social activity actually in the organization, but it's a social activity and that has a good benefit, or they are trying to inculcate that culture within their company. So people have different motivations to volunteer. I think it's just about tapping that motivation at the right time and giving a person a very good first experience with volunteering. Once they have that experience, I think most people do tend to come back to it whenever they have time. They do tell their friends about it, they'll tell their family members about it. So it's just about ensuring that that first experience is smooth. Because I think if a lot of people have that initial will to do something, like on your birthday or on an occasion, you always feel like, okay, I should give back. And a lot of times people want to now not only donate money, they're like, no, let me do something good. At least once or twice a year, you kind of get that feeling, or you see something sad happening. Like, for example, when COVID happened, I think we saw the largest amount of people signing up to our website in the last 2 years, because I think just the sense of helplessness was so much in the country that people were looking for ways which they could help other people out, right? So volunteering becomes that way in which you can help somebody else out. So we really saw that picking up when, the whole country was trying to come together to do something good, and when people needed that kind of support. So I think just being available and like making sure that people think about ConnectFor as a brand when that feeling comes to them is what our goal is, to ensure that we can be that, they think of us and we can give them that first experience, because once they have their first experience with volunteering, we know they'll come back. We also feel that when people are younger and they volunteer, they grow up to become philanthropists, so they're more likely to give back in not only their time and their skill, but they will probably end up being connected to a non-profit organization where they'll eventually give money and they'll go on to do a lot more things with that NGO. So that's really what our purpose is, to ensure that people have that, when they have that feeling of doing good, we are there to encourage them and help them take their first step.
All right. Also, like I'd like to add that people our generation mostly like try to aspire to do many things, but we often tend to like procrastinate or sometimes not find the right platforms, like where to go, like how to do it, and awareness is like the I think key here. And what you're doing
Yeah,
with the organization is creating awareness more than anything else, and that is the primary thing that's required. So kudos to
absolutely.
both of you. Also,
Thank you.
like when people aspire and they get in touch with you online, because most of the stuff, because if somebody is not based out of Bombay or the other cities that you're targeting, so most of the things have shifted online. Virtually everything is
Yeah.
happening. So, what are the opportunities that you saw shifting to a virtual volunteering model? And has it been very successful? Did you see that there has been a boom in the kind of extent to which people have been involved now compared to how they were offline?
Absolutely. So actually, very surprising even to us. So when in 2020, up until 2020, we were mainly, most volunteering was happening offline, like at an NGO center or in a physical location. And the kind of success rate we saw, where like if somebody had signed up, and to somebody who signs up to volunteer and actually ends up completing it, was say about 30-40%, maybe something like that, because there's so many barriers, right? You may get lazy, like you mentioned, or traffic. In most metro cities, it's like to do volunteer for 2-3 hours, have to travel for 1 hour, 1 hour back. And then on weekends or post work or post college or school, it can get quite time consuming. So people used to most of our work used to be ensuring that people find something as close to their homes as possible. And then in 2020, when COVID happened, obviously everything became virtual. And like I said earlier, that a lot of people were signing up at that time because they were looking for something to do. So we came up and we really brainstormed within the team as to how can people volunteer virtually. And we thought of like several kinds of projects, from like recording storybooks to creating digital content which teachers can teach to the children, to directly capacity building and helping and training NGO staff on how to use computers more effectively or digital tools more effectively, like presentations, Google Slides. How can you record audiobooks for specially able people, creating self-care videos. We thought of like over 100 or 200 kinds of projects which would help or benefit non-profits and their beneficiaries virtually. And within 2 weeks of when COVID hit, we had uploaded those. And I think when we moved to a 100% virtual model, we actually saw the number of people that were volunteering and the success rate or the turnout ratio of signing up to actually completing a project go up significantly. And this is, I think, because of the fact that you could just do something from your home. So it was so easy to actually make a difference, right? So also I think because a lot of people were home and had a lot more time during lockdown, so that also definitely boosted that. And the sentiment in the country was to sort of help out people and do something good at that point. So I think all of that did fuel this greater turnout towards volunteering. But since then, we realized that now there's always going to be an element of virtual volunteering that will continue. So, yes, we have started on ground and in person volunteering again, but I would say still 60 to 70% of the volunteering that's happening is still virtual, just because of how convenient it is.
And I think the world is shifting to a very tech savvy
Yeah,
world now. So even volunteering must do that. Yeah.
uh, yeah,
Also, like coming back to your role in ConnectFor, so what is like your main vision for the coming 5 years? You and Shoka, what have you planned in the sense that see, India is full of youth, and our youth population is so not just in terms of the number of people that we have, but also in terms of opportunities that keep coming up. Because India being a developing country and people being full of ideas, the startup age and everything else, people are now looking to do many, many newer things in life, especially in their 20s and 30s, and they're open to change. How do you see and what do you want Connect for to be in, like, say, 5 years or 10 years? And how, like, can you just segregate some of your goals or vision plans?
sure. So I think for us, it's now about ensuring that we have both scale and quality. So, and which are pretty difficult to get together. I think if you talk to anybody who runs a startup, I think this is a general dilemma. Like, should we scale or should we focus on quality? But I think for us, it's about ensuring that we can target every youth in India to volunteer. I think the ecosystem in general has been aiding or helping us towards growing and helping us fulfill that mission, because schools and colleges have really made it mandatory now for um, you know kids, students to volunteer. So that's a really good thing. A lot of masters programs across the country now make a component where students have to do some internship with an NGO or something like that. So I think all of this really helps us move towards our mission of having every youth experience volunteering in their late teens and early 20s. And as we work towards that, we want to ensure that yes, we reach a lot of number of people, we clock a lot of volunteering hours, but at the same time, we ensure that we're working with our non-profit organizations and NGOs in India to be able to optimize and utilize the volunteers very effectively and efficiently, so that the quality of experience that the volunteers get is also so amazing that they come back to do this, through their lifetimes, and they inculcate this in the generations to come also. So, if we want that to happen, we need to ensure that the kind of quality of volunteering that people experience is also really good, right?
Yeah.
So, that's why we are working towards building that capacity in our non-profit so that they can manage volunteers really well. They give them fulfilling experiences and they get a value add at the end of it. So for us, it's about creating a win-win for both the volunteer and the NGO at the end of it, so that at the end of it, we're creating impact and social value in the development sector.
Yeah. I think the point about social value creation that you brought up is very significant, because I think for you and matlab for ConnectFor to really scale up, it's easier compared to other like initiatives or startups, also because you have a purpose here which is not just profit or anything else, but to create social value creation. And that in itself is, easier to spread, because India is a country of sentiment, and we're all mostly sentimental people, so it's easy to flow with the wave, which will develop as a phenomena. And that's why I think ConnectFor will definitely have a bright future. And
Thank you.
yeah.
No, I definitely agree. Like just from the time when we started, which was 6.5 years ago, I can definitely see the shift in what's happened, if you say in the social sector or in terms of the kind of ecosystem that's been there for social enterprises, non-profits, for volunteering in itself. It was at such a nascent stage maybe back then in 2013-14, and it's definitely changed to what it is now. There are many platforms like ConnectFor. There are lots and lots of non-profits. There are lots of people who are aware about the fact that they want to do this
Hmm.
at a young, and that's definitely changed from what it was about 6-7 years ago.
Yeah. I think the world in itself, like from say like how much we've changed in the 1970s to 2000, we've done it in like 2-3 years in the 2000s. So the
Yeah.
change and the rapid growth and advancement technologically and in every other way has been very large. So I think that really leads to this also, that ConnectFor will definitely multiply its goals faster and lead to better changes in the short span of time. So coming to like being women in leadership roles, you and Shoka are two women, and I also spoke to your team. Like mostly you're women who you've taken the charge to spread volunteering through India. So how has it been being a women's team? In the sense that I know it's a very cliche question, and now we're all in an age where it doesn't even matter, but still like there are sometimes challenges that we face being women, especially women in power or any kind of leadership role. So how has your and like Shloka's journey been in that sense, and did you face that being female leaders has been different or more special to say? Yeah.
So I think we've been fortunate in the sense that it's never really impacted us in a way. Our families have been extremely supportive in the work we do, and I think obviously we've not, as founders, we were the ones making the rules, I guess. So never really came in, it never was a barrier for us. And having said that, I am very aware that in a lot of other industries and companies, this can be, climbing the corporate ladder and stuff can be a challenge. So I think we've been fortunate in that sense. And we've always, like, I think since we were young, again, I think this is a privilege we've had. We've always almost been treated equally to our friends who are male, or our brothers and things like that. So it's not really been a challenge personally, but I think it's something we can't even take for granted. Obviously, this is something we use to our advantage. In the sense, we've been able to fortunately recruit a lot of women and young girls, and part of our team, and we love to see them growing and flourishing and seeing their careers grow, because that's something that helps us believe that at least for this generation we can make that change.
That's great, Manati. And also, like, I would like to congratulate you for two things mainly. One, spreading such a beautiful cause throughout India, which we really needed some light on. And, it's like a wave that you've started, and I'm sure that many, many others will join in and, get in the non-profit sector and the development sector.
And
And yeah, and secondly, for building a team culture, which it's very prevalent that your team, it shows that how great and purposeful they feel their work to be, and that's, I think, tremendous, and it speaks volumes about the kind of leaders you two are. So
thank,
congratulations on being such incredible women, and
thank you.
thank you for joining us today. It was great hearing from you, and I hope that people now volunteer more and more, and get in touch with you and connect for, and spread. And I hope that you spread to cities across India, because uh,
We hope
many
so
many,
too.
yeah,
Yeah, thanks, and thanks for having me. And I hope we have connected well with your audience and they feel inspired to kickstart their volunteering journey today.
definitely they will. Thank you so much, Manati.
Thanks, Palak.
Thank you. Okay.